Hi, my name is Jason, and this is the first in a series of videos I plan on doing about Malifaux, the skirmish miniatures game. Some of you may recognize me from Two Guys and Some Cardboard, a show that I do with my friend Ken. For those of you who don't, if you're interested at all in board games, then you should check it out, and I'm going to put the link to that just below this video. Another thing that most of you will probably notice is that the video quality is not great here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to borrow the camera that we actually use for Two Guys, and so this is just sort of a cheap camera that I picked up for 30 bucks. So it shouldn't be too big a deal. I'm going to use some graphics and special effects where I can to get around that, but if it is an issue, then maybe I'll borrow the camera from Ken, and we'll see what we can do there. But for now, I think this is probably fine. So to start off with, I thought I'd just outline basically how these videos are going to be structured. So first of all, there's going to be probably about 9 or 10 videos, and I know that seems like a lot, but I really intend these to be pretty short videos, and that's so that people can go back and look at specific areas, or can skip past areas that they kind of already know. So overall, this shouldn't really be that much longer than a standard episode of Two Guys. So first of all, this video is meant to be an introduction to the series, and it's also going to be a sort of brief history of the Malifaux storyline. So towards the end of the video, we'll go into the details of the storyline. I'll sort of synopsize it, and it's all available at the Malifaux website. So feel free to just skip over that if you want to, and read it if that's how you synthesize information. But if not, then I'll hopefully you won't be too bored with me speaking at you for a few minutes about that. So the next video is going to go over some, absolute basics, like the things you need to play, some basic terms and conventions, any rules that don't really fit anywhere else, so, sort of general rules. The one after that is going to go over the sort of the basics of the actual skirmish system, so line of sight, area of effect, that sort of stuff. After that, we'll do a video just about how the Fate deck works, and that's sort of the core mechanic of Malifaux, so I want to devote some time to that. Next, we'll go over sort of the game setup, how to set up for a game, and how the game is actually structured. Following that, we'll get into combat, so the sort of the down and gritty stuff, combat magic, the morale system, how that works. We'll also go into a little bit of detail on some of the strategies and schemes, which you'll understand what those are later on in the series. And my final video, it's my goal to have that as basically a setup for a game and an entire game turn. So that one might be a little bit longer than the others, but that's just because it'll be pretty detailed, and hopefully that'll give you a better idea of how everything sort of works together. I also wanted to mention that these videos, or at least the initial videos that I've already discussed, are basically only going to cover the core rulebook. That's this book here. There are already 3 expansion rulebooks, and each one adds quite a bit of new material. So I probably will do extra videos about those, probably 1 video each. But any of the content in those will not be discussed in this initial series of videos. Alright, and one last thing before we actually get started. I just wanted to note I'm not an expert on this game. I haven't even really played a full game myself. The reason I'm doing this is sort of to help solidify the rules for myself, because I find doing videos helps. And, as sort of a tool for anyone else who sort of wants to follow my footsteps, as it were. If you happen to know the rules really well and you're watching these videos and you notice something that's not explained correctly, please let me know, either in the comments or you private message me, whatever, and I will either annotate it, or if possible, then I can maybe refilm that part. But yeah, overall I want to try and convey the correct rules, so I really won't be offended if you let me know that I've done something wrong. So at this point, we're going to talk about the history of Malifaux. So this is the storyline of the game. I'm sort of going to synopsize it here. this may not be very interesting to you if you would prefer to read it. I certainly understand that, and I will put the link to the history page on the Malifaux website in the comments section below. So check that out. I won't be offended. If not, then let's get started into the history. So first of all, Malifaux takes place in sort of an alternate timeline. So it's very similar to our history, but it's a little bit different. For starters, magic is actually pretty commonplace in this world. However, about 1787, it is discovered that magic is slowly dwindling. They don't know why, but a few relatively powerful magicians sort of band together, and they try to figure out a way to bolster their power again. So what they discover is they actually find sort of a world that is very close to our own, and they decide to try and sort of break through. So they find the spot where the veil between these two worlds is pretty thin, and they do this huge ritual that involves a lot of magicians and a lot of stuff in general. They do actually succeed in opening a portal between these worlds, which they call the Great Breach. Unfortunately, the magical energies that they use kind of end up killing most of the people involved in the ritual and leveling the entire city around the ritual site. So obviously, teams of explorers are sent through the breach, and what they find there is pretty interesting. They actually find this huge city that's very like a lot of cities Earthside. However, there are signs in a strange language, and most mysterious of all, there is absolutely no one there, and no sign as to what happened to the original inhabitants. Eventually, they decode the language, and they determine that the name of the city is Malifaux, which is where the game gets its name. In addition, further exploration shows two more important details. So first of all, they find a very large mining operation, and looking through the mines there, they find that people were actually mining these gemstones, sort of milky white gemstones that actually contain etheric energy. So basically pure magic that magicians can use to power their spells. It's also discovered, accidentally, that these gems can be recharged when they are actually in the vicinity of someone who is dying. So they actually call these gems soul stones as a result. The other important discovery is they find that they are actually not alone in this world, and there are actually a lot of strange creatures there, many of which actually resemble things from Earth myths and legends, and there are all kinds of sort of mythological monsters and things. And as a group, they sort of term these things to be the Neverborn. So after all the exploration's done and everything, of course, they pretty much open Malifaux to the public. People move in, mining operations recommence, a lot of discoveries are made. For example, they learn that they can use soul stones to power steam-powered gadgets and sort of imbue them with a life all their own. And these things are called constructs, of course. And a less up-and-up group of individuals also discovers that they can use soul stones to reanimate the dead. And these people start to call themselves resurrectionists, and they start to go around and ply their trade. So everything goes pretty well for quite a while, but a decade after the opening of the breach, unfortunately, during the winter, a very strange blizzard comes into the city of Malifaux, and the breach actually starts shrinking in size. So magicians on both sides try to stabilize it, obviously, but unfortunately they're not successful. And people Earthside eventually start hearing the sounds of battle coming through the breach, and eventually there's nothing but silence. Then, in the early hours of the morning, the next morning, the breach has dwindled to about 12 feet across, which is pretty small. It's a very large opening. And at that point, a badly mutilated corpse is actually thrown through from the other side, at which point the breach just claps shut. And upon investigation, they noticed that carved into the chest of the corpse is one word: ours. So after the closing of the breach, obviously the soul stones that had already been shipped through to Earthside became a pretty hot commodity, and the magicians, most of them the ones who actually participated and survived the original ceremony to open the breach, they actually started to seize control of these soul stones and sort of mete them out to the individual governments and whatnot, and use them as a power base. So they sort of became this huge political entity, and they started calling themselves the Guild. So then, 1 century after the closing of the breach, almost down to the minute, it just suddenly reopens. So the Guild immediately mobilizes their military arm, because they have it at that point. They've become quite a global power, and they send a bunch of people through. So what they find is they find the city of Malifaux again. This time it's pretty obvious that there's been some kind of battle there. A lot of stuff is ruined. However, they can find absolutely no indication as to what happened, no bodies, and nothing alive. So whatever happened originally seems to have happened again. So anyway, the Guild immediately sets up sort of a safe zone in Malifaux. So they know that they can't control the whole city, but they sort of set up an area of control, which is pretty fortified, and they actually go about allowing the public in again. However, this time they've decided that they're going to stay in control. So what they do is, for one thing, they actually allow prisoners Earthside, ones with life sentences in general, to actually come through to Malifaux and work for them in their mines in exchange for the chance that they might be able to buy their freedom. They also allow, just anybody through. However, anybody coming through has to agree that if they find anything major there, they have to sign a percentage of it over to the Guild. So the Guild really becomes a powerhouse in Malifaux, obviously. And that pretty much brings us to the present in the current game of Malifaux. It's about 4 years after the breach had reopened. The Guild maintains an iron grip on Malifaux. The Resurrectionists are about again plying their trade. The miners have actually gathered together into the Miners and Steamfitters Union, which is actually a front for the Arcanists, who are sort of rebels against the oppressive Guild. Of course, the Neverborn are still there, and they cause trouble whenever they can. And finally, there are a lot of commoners there, and they're just hoping to survive in Malifaux, make their fortune, and hopefully make enough money to pay the exorbitant fees to get a trip back across to Earthside through the breach. Alright, so that's pretty much a synopsis of Malifaux. I feel that I've probably talked enough at this point anyway, so we're going to stop this video here. I hope you kind of watch for the rest of these and follow them if you're at all interested. It's a pretty cool game, and if you like skirmish miniatures games, and if you like steampunk or horror or fantasy or what have you, it's pretty much all here. There's pretty much something for everyone. So anyway, I hope to see you next time, and in the meantime, have good games.